Am I the only person who's ever fallen into the trap of thinking that I don't have anything valuable to say? I spent so much of my time, so many years of my life believing that there was no reason for me to talk because I didn't have anything that anybody would want to listen to. When you say it out loud, it sounds like complete bullshit, right? So why do we keep telling ourselves that? And why do we allow ourselves to believe it? My name is Amber Fuhriman, and this is the More Than Corporate podcast. Welcome to the More Than Corporate podcast. I'm Amber Fuhriman, recovering perfectionist and serial accomplisher. If you're anything like I used to be, you've been living your life thinking that if you accomplish enough stuff, you'll finally find the success you've always wanted. But what if it's not about accomplishing more stuff? What if it's about accomplishing the right stuff? I believe you don't find success, you create it by intentionally designing the life you want and having the courage to get out of your comfort zone to live your design. I went from doing what I was supposed to do to doing what I love to do, and now I get to help others do the same. Keep listening as I chat with inspiring people who make it their mission to live their best life every day and learn how you too can live the life you've always wanted. As always, I'm streaming this to my Facebook group, The Success Center. There's an amazing group of people that are supportive and ready to interact and support you in whatever way you need. If you want to have first access to these videos and have the opportunity to comment and engage, head over to Facebook and join the Success Center community. All right, so let's talk about this for just a minute. This idea that we don't have anything of value to say. This is something that I've heard coming up a lot in conversations that I've had with people, with conversations that I've had with friends, with posts that I've been seeing on Facebook. And it's the idea of, why should I comment? Why should I speak up? Because I don't have anything valuable to say. This to me is completely insane. And yet when I got to the point that I was starting to put together this episode, I realized how much time I had spent in that world. It's crazy because if you think about it, if you step out of yourself for a minute and imagine that you're having a conversation with a friend of yours, and that friend says, I've thought about making a comment. I've thought about saying something. I've thought about whatever comes after that sentence. I just don't think I have anything valuable to say. Would you ever look at that person and be like, yeah, you're right. You probably don't. You should probably keep your mouth shut. Of course you wouldn't, because that would be an asshole move. So why do we listen to the asshole in our head? Why do we allow ourselves to silence ourselves in a way that we would never, ever allow somebody else to do? It's such an interesting idea because so many times we don't even realize that we're doing it. I remember when I first started going down this path, when I first started getting into mindset, I started working on my own struggles that I needed to get over. And through that, I found NLP and found more information about the way that the mind works and really dug into this. And I remember when I first started to make this switch and think, you know what, I really want to share my story, really want to be able to help others get some of the same lessons and value and resources that I've had. And this idea of, yeah, but who would listen went through my head more times than I could count. And I know that, you may have heard me talk about my very, very first blog post where I was absolutely terrified to post it. How many times have you written something, or how many times have you written something, or you've said something, or you've thought about creating a presentation or a course, or you've thought about creating a keynote, and you get started on it and you're like, who would want to listen to this? I'll never forget sitting at a conference in May of 2000, and I guess it would have been May of 2019. It was my first personal development conference. I had just started planning this podcast, but it hadn't launched yet. And I'm sitting in this group of amazing people that are living a life that I never knew was possible. There's somebody on the stage and he's talking, and I'm thinking, man, like that's really cool for him. but I could never do that. And then I hear him say something that has stuck with me for the rest of the last couple of years. He said, we need multiple messengers for the same message. And I thought, holy cow. Like the fact that the things that I want to say, somebody else might already be saying. They're not saying them in the same way you would. They don't have your life experiences to put that spin on that somebody might understand. The fact that, we all think that we need to have this original thought and idea, which would be great. I read a book called Steal Like an Artist that completely blew my mind when it came to original thought. And it really traces back the fact that art is taking what somebody else has done and adjusting that and making it your own. But the idea that there is original art going all the way back, he goes all the way back to, I think, like the 17th, 18th century, and can trace some of the most modern art pieces to things that were done hundreds and hundreds of years ago. We are all sharing so much valuable information, but what makes it valuable when coming from you or from me or from your neighbor or from your mentor, what makes that valuable is that it's your experiences. It's the way that you've internalized that lesson. It's the person who can relate to you in a way that maybe they couldn't relate to somebody else. It's that person who sees you in them and says, you know what, maybe I can do this. Then you start talking and you share your experiences, and all of the sudden, you've completely changed a life. And that life goes on and changes another life. And then eventually you are impacting the world in a way that you didn't think was possible, all because you silenced that inner asshole, stepped out and said, you know what, I do have something to say. We all have something important. We all have lessons. We all have a message that we're supposed to get out into the world. We all have things to talk about. And the second thing that someone said to me that completely changed the way that I looked at this topic was that everybody's an expert to someone. No matter where you are on your journey, no matter what you've learned, no matter what your experiences are, no matter what your lessons are, you have information, knowledge, resources, a perspective that can help somebody else through something that they're going through. But it can only help them if you share it. And you can only share it if you are willing to believe that you have something valuable to say. We all have something valuable to say. Next time you're in a situation where you're thinking about commenting on a post, you're thinking about responding to a question, you're thinking about applying for a speaking engagement, you're thinking about sending that reel to get booked on a conference, you're thinking about creating a summit, creating a project, creating a blog, whatever it is, the moment that little voice pops up and says, yeah, but who's going to listen? Who am I to do this? What do I have to say? I want you to go stand in front of a mirror, and I want you to look at yourself as if you were talking to a friend of yours. And I want you to really think, would you tell that friend, you know what, you're right, nobody's going to come. You probably shouldn't do it. Or you're right, like you don't really have anything to say. Don't book that conference. The easiest person for us to lie to is ourselves, and we are always our harshest critic. How long are you going to silence the voice that you have? How long are you going to keep those life-changing resources that have allowed you to get from wherever you were when you started to wherever you are now? Because everybody's journey is different. How long are you going to keep those resources to yourself? So many times where I wanted to share something and I thought, you know what, like, it's really selfish for me to talk about this right now. Maybe this isn't the right time. Maybe, I don't want to bring attention to myself. All the excuses, all the self-sabotage. If you're worried about being seen as I guess, selfish, imagine how selfish it is to keep those lessons to yourself. What I'd really love for you guys to do is comment underneath this video and tell me the one thing, if you could just get one message out into the world, if there's one thing that you could tell everyone that you know, what is it that you think the world needs to know? Because I promise you somebody will resonate with that message. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this. This is a topic that's extremely close to my heart because I lived in it for so long. I lived in the nobody cares what I have to say place for so long. And I can completely resonate with that person who says, I mean, I'm doing stuff, but does it really matter? I'm doing stuff, but does anybody really want to listen? The answer to that question is yes, they do. As soon as they know that you're there because you've allowed yourself to get out of your comfort zone and share your message. Always remember that you have the ability to design the life that you've always wanted, and you owe it to yourself to get out of your comfort zone and live it. If you want to learn more about how you can do that, and if you want to have a conversation about where to start to finally bring your dreams into reality, there's going to be a Calendly link underneath this episode. Book a call with me and let's find out the best way to get you finally living the life that you've always wanted. Have a fantastic day, guys. We'll talk next week. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the More Than Corporate podcast. If anything that was said during this episode resonated with you or provided value in any way, it would mean the world to me if you would head over to iTunes and leave a rating and review for the More Than Corporate podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to do that. I'm really looking forward to connecting with you. If you'd also like to connect, I've created a Facebook group that is full of amazing people who also make it their mission to live their best life every single day. If that sounds like something that you're interested in, the name of that Facebook group is Success Center. Head over there, request to join, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.